Imagine this. A broke, kinda nerdy college kid accidentally stumbled upon the glitch on the darkest corner of the internet. A glitch that lets him print, well, steal Bitcoin. Not just a little, we're talking billions. He goes from ramen noodles to Lamborghinis, throwing insane parties, living the high life. But this isn't just a story about getting rich quick. It's a wild ride involving the infamous Silk Road, clueless cops, savvy IRS agents, betrayal by friends, and one incredibly dumb mistake that brought the whole $3.4 billion house of cards crashing down. Stick around, because the story of Jimmy Zhong is crazier than fiction. Let's rewind to May 2012. Bitcoin? It wasn't the headline-grabbing digital gold it is today. Back then, one Bitcoin was worth maybe 12 bucks. It was mostly known in niche tech circles and notoriously on the dark web. Enter Jimmy Zhong. Just a regular University of Georgia student, maybe a bit geeky, definitely not a criminal mastermind. Like many early tech enthusiasts, he dabbled in Bitcoin and had a small amount stashed on a site called the Silk Road. Now, Silk Road wasn't your average website. It was the Amazon of the dark web, a notorious online black market where you could buy drugs, weapons, stolen data, you name it. And the currency of choice? Bitcoin. So one night, Jimmy logs onto Silk Road. His goal is simple: withdraw the few Bitcoin he'd left forgotten in his account. He goes through the process, clicks withdraw, and then, maybe accidentally, maybe on a whim, he double-clicks the withdraw button. Instantly, something bizarre happens. The amount of Bitcoin that lands in his external wallet is double what he requested, double what was even in his Silk Road account. At first, he thinks it's just a display error, a glitch in the matrix. But he checks his wallet balance. It's real. The money doubled. This wasn't magic. It was a gaping security hole in Silk Road's system. What would you do? A normal person might cash out the small extra amount and run. But Jimmy? He saw an opportunity. He tried it again. Double-click. Double money. Again. Double-click. Double money. He realized he'd found an infinite money glitch. An ATM that just kept spitting out cash, or rather, Bitcoin. Jimmy wasn't a master hacker, but he knew how to exploit this. He systematically created dozens of new accounts on Silk Road, deposited small amounts of Bitcoin, and then used his double-click withdrawal method over and over. Within days, his Bitcoin stash exploded exponentially. From a few hundred Bitcoin, he amassed tens of thousands. Soon, he drained 50,000 Bitcoin from Silk Road using this glitch. Now, back in 2012, 50,000 Bitcoin was worth around $600,000. A life-changing amount for a college kid, for sure. But here's the kicker. Jimmy held on to most of it. And as the years went by, the value of Bitcoin skyrocketed. That $600,000 would eventually be worth billions. But Jimmy? He didn't stop there. He decided to live large. Overnight, Jimmy Zhong went from zero to hero, at least in his own mind. He ditched the dorm room lifestyle for pure excess. He wasn't just going to bars, he was renting out entire bars. He wasn't just shopping, he was dropping fortunes on Gucci and Louis Vuitton like it grew on trees. He bought a lakefront mansion, a Lamborghini, installed a stripper pole in his living room, and threw legendary parties fueled by endless cash and booze. To his new circle of friends, Jimmy claimed he'd been a Bitcoin genius, investing way back in 2009 when it was practically unknown. People flocked to him, naturally. Who wouldn't want to hang out with a guy who throws money around like confetti? In 2018, he flew a whole group of friends on a private jet to watch a football game, giving each of them $10,000 spending money for a Beverly Hills shopping spree. He even kept a suitcase stuffed with cash at home just to impress women. But money buys attention, not loyalty. And Jimmy's flashy lifestyle, built on stolen funds, was bound to attract the wrong kind. In May 2019, while Jimmy was traveling, disaster struck. He got an alert. His house had been broken into. Security footage showed it wasn't random. The thief knew exactly where Jimmy kept his emergency cash stash. 400,000 cash and 150 Bitcoin vanished. Don't tu. Tukuk dutra dingay sipdo. Jimmy was furious. And here's where he makes a crucial, though understandable mistake. He called the police. He reported the theft, specifically mentioning the stolen cryptocurrency. Now, back in 2019, local police weren't exactly experts in crypto crime. The investigation stalled. Jimmy even hired a private investigator. The prime suspect? one of his own friends. The betrayal stung, but the case went cold. Jimmy had no idea his real nightmare was just beginning, and it wasn't coming from the thief who robbed him. It was coming from the IRS. See, while Jimmy was worrying about his stolen cash, IRS criminal investigators, specifically cybercrime specialists, were working on a completely different case: the original massive hack and subsequent shutdown of the Silk Road marketplace itself. Digging through the blockchain, the permanent public ledger of all Bitcoin transactions, they were tracing the flow of illicit funds from Silk Road. And while doing that, they stumbled upon something odd: a huge, unexplained withdrawal of 50,000 Bitcoin back in 2012 that didn't match the main Silk Road hack they were investigating. It was Jimmy's heist. They didn't know who it was yet, but they knew someone had exploited Silk Road years earlier for a massive amount. For years, Jimmy had stayed relatively hidden, his identity disconnected from the stolen coins. He might have gotten away with it, if not for one incredibly stupid, tiny mistake. He needed to move about $800 worth of that stolen Bitcoin. He transferred it to a mainstream, regulated cryptocurrency exchange, an exchange that follows banking rules, specifically KYC, Know Your Customer. This meant Jimmy had to provide his real name and address to use the exchange. Bingo! Chainalysis, a blockchain analysis firm working with the IRS, spotted this tiny transaction linking the massive stolen Silk Road funds directly to an account registered under the name James Zhong. This was September 2019, just months after Jimmy had called the cops about his own robbery. The IRS now had their man. But instead of kicking down his door immediately, the IRS agents played it smart. They decided to use Jimmy's own police report against him. Agents showed up at Jimmy's mansion, pretending to be investigating the break-in he reported. They didn't mention Silk Road or the 50,000 Bitcoin. They acted friendly, sympathetic. Jimmy, naive and eager to show off, fell for it hook, line, and sinker. He gave them a tour of his luxury mansion, bragged about his parties, showed them a safe he claimed sometimes held $1 million in cash to impress the ladies. Then, the agents steered the conversation toward Bitcoin, acting impressed by his investment genius. Feeling validated, Jimmy made his fatal error. He opened his laptop, logged into his encrypted cryptocurrency wallet right in front of them, and proudly displayed his balance. Over $60 million worth of Bitcoin at that moment. The IRS agents had seen all they needed. Shortly after leaving, the agents got a search warrant. They raided the house. They found another computer hidden inside a popcorn tin in a closet containing millions more in stolen Bitcoin. Using scent dogs, they discovered a safe embedded in the basement floor under concrete, containing cash, precious metals, collectible physical Bitcoins, and crucially, the hardware wallet holding the keys to the original 50,000 Bitcoin stolen from Silk Road back in 2012. At the time of the seizure, that 50,000 Bitcoin was worth $3.4 billion. Jimmy Zhong was arrested. In one moment of careless bragging, the accidental billionaire thief handed the authorities everything they needed. Facing decades in prison, Jimmy had little choice but to cooperate. He handed over all the Bitcoin, pleaded guilty, and received a sentence of just 1 year and 1 day in federal prison. And what happened to the $3.4 billion? The US government seized it. They technically allowed victims of the Silk Road theft to claim it, but surprise, surprise, almost no one came forward. Why? Because most users of Silk Road in 2012 were criminals themselves. The massive fortune was eventually forfeited to the US government, with a portion likely going to law enforcement agencies involved. Ironically, the $400,000 cash and 150 Bitcoin stolen from Jimmy in the 2019 home invasion, that case remains unsolved. The thief who robbed the thief got away. As for Jimmy, while serving his short sentence, none of the friends he showered with cash and trips ever visited or called. The world he built with stolen money evaporated. When he had billions, he thought he was the king. When he lost it all, he realized he was just a pawn in a game fueled by greed, including his own. So was Jimmy Zhong a hacking genius or just a lucky fool? The evidence points pretty strongly towards the latter. He stumbled into a fortune, lived like a king for a while, but lacked the discipline, foresight, or maybe just the common sense to keep it. You can steal billions in Bitcoin apparently, but you can't steal wisdom. It's a wild story about the early days of crypto, the dark web, and how sometimes the biggest threat isn't the authorities, but your own ego. Pi Network is still in its early stages, and the question is, will we see similar stories happen with Picoin in the near future? Pi from Us hopes that if the day comes when Picoin holds significant value, pioneers will be well prepared and avoid the serious mistakes that happened with Bitcoin. Good luck, Pioneer!